So the market's in pretty decent form. So let's focus on Mahindra Lifespace developers. At 456, that stock is not doing very much today. But we're going to go straight across to Sanjay Srivastava, Chief Operating Officer of Mahindra World City, Jaipur. Interest in this development has built up, particularly after it's become the first a sort of integrated city and the largest project in this part of the world to become, to make a commitment to be carbon positive. We'll talk about that and the occupancy levels with Mr. Srivastava. Thank you very much for joining us on NDTV Profit today. First off, for the uninitiated, if you had to describe Mahindra World City Jaipur, how would you describe it?
Thanks for having me, Manvi. So the fundamental concept of Mahindra World City is how we can really create integrated business cities which look at all the aspects of livelihood, living and life integrated together. So can we really create self-sustaining ecosystem which has industrial ecosystem, which has the residential ecosystem and an associated social infrastructure, so that it can be a self-sustaining model for scaling. So that is really the concept of Mahindra World City.
Sure. I just wanted all our viewers to be fully aware of Mahindra World City Jaipur. Now let's talk about the nitty-gritty, which is the status on the occupancy right now, sir. Can you run us through that?
Sure. So we have two Mahindra World Cities which are already operational. The first one is a Mahindra World City which, in Chennai, which is about 13 years old, and the second one is Mahindra World City Jaipur, that is about 8 years old. Between both the cities we already have 120 plus clients already signed up.
There's so much talk right now, sir, about smart cities, and in a sense, your World City in Chennai, your World City in Jaipur, built around the same concept. So are there any learnings in the development of the Mahindra World City Jaipur that can be applied to this idea of smart cities that the government is working on?
Sure, Mani. So I think there are 2 or 3 key learnings. The first one is that we have to ensure that the complete planning is very well thought out, and there is a long-term planning, because that is really the core of sustainability or smart planning. I think that is the first one. The second most important thing is that the reason for creating a smart city is there needs to be an economic activity, because if the economic activity is there, then there will be a natural pull for people to come in, and that is when the cities start thriving. And the third and the last one is that we need to have a long-term perspective, because creation of city is a extremely long-term and a patient game.
You've mentioned economic pull. Do you think that the list of cities that the government has talked about in its smart city list, and there's a wide range, there's a lot of different profiles, but they don't all meet this whole economic pull criteria?
I would just answer that question in a part that the fundamental intention of the government is how really you can push manufacturing or services economic activity, and an enabler to this can be the smart city. So whichever of these smart cities have the necessary economic activity built in and then scale on that, they will probably move faster compared to others.
I'm changing gears, and perhaps this is a slightly selfish question. Living in a Delhi like in a city like Delhi, where we're constantly obsessed with pollution levels, how is World City Jaipur doing on its carbon positive commitment?
Sure. So as I said, Mahindra World City Jaipur, the core vision which we follow is that how we can really transform urban landscape through creating sustainable communities. So when we have created a carbon positive roadmap, it essentially means that we have planned the measures now as well as for the long-term growth, which will ensure when the city blooms in its full over the next 15 to 20 years, at each point of execution, there is enough positive emission norms are being followed. So even when the complete city is operational, it will still be actually contributing to the environment, and that means it may be using elements of solarification, it may be using elements of water cycling, it may be using elements of smart city.
And all of this incorporated at the design stage. Of course, the challenge for existing cities is how to add these elements when they're already very mature cities. Let's talk about the next phase of development at Mahindra World City Jaipur. What's planned?
Sure. So Mahindra World City Jaipur is a joint venture between Mahindra and the government of Rajasthan. It's a 74-26 venture. It started about 8 years back. Right now the focus is, as I talked of, on the 3 L's. It is the first L, which is livelihood. Building on the industrialization effort, now it will then move to the next stage where it also starts building components of social and residential infrastructure as well.
Okay, just run us through the economic activities that are already underway there, sir.
So as I talked of, as of last quarter, we already have 65 plus clients signed up. In the industrial zone, we already have 3 SEZs, IT, ITS, handicraft and engineering, and 1 domestic tariff area. In each of the regions, we already have some very good clients which are already operational. So in IT, ITS, we have the clients like Infosys, MetLife, Deutsche Bank, who are operational. In domestic tariff area, JCB is setting up one of its largest plants across the globe. Porto, which is a Brazilian ATM manufacturer, is setting up its 100% FDI plant. So Mahindra itself is setting up a auto and spares part logistics hub. So that is just to give you some flavor of both manufacturing and services, the activity which is already on. Last financial year, the various units already exported close to 1100 plus crore worth of exports for the full financial year.
We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to go straight across to